Now, is this where I say, I swear to tell the whole truth,
The only truth
the
and
truth and nothing but the truth?
All right, George.
Hi, my name is George Krasinski.
I'm Andrew Gusho.
I'm Jordan Barada.
I'm Andre Canseco.
This is our Korean War vet.
Peter Lovinus.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lovinus. How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you.
So to start off, we would just like to ask a couple of questions, and you can go into detail about your early childhood years. So where you were born, when you were born.
No, I was born in December 15th, 1932. Those were the years when the people were coming out of the Great Depression. My dad was a milkman, and he was with the horse and cart milkman, and he used to deliver milk and he worked for a firm called Gridley's, which is today Borden's. So then when he transferred over to trucks, he didn't know how to drive a truck, so he had to look for work again. And he got a job in an ice cream factory. Every kid's wish. We had ice cream every day, we wanted, and this is wartime. And it was bricks. It's equivalent to 2 pints, so it's made in one piece. And he worked in an ice cream factory. So we never suffered some of the consequences of World War II. Lack of sugar, ice cream, all that stuff went for the war effort. And one thing that was traumatized by me is when the war broke out, the FBI rang our doorbell. They wanted to talk to my mother. She wasn't a citizen. She was Austrian, and she was over here. So on December 8th, the doorbell rang, and my dad was American citizen at that time, but my mother wasn't. So that was my first trauma, whatever you want to call it. And I thought they were going to take her away, but they didn't. So, and then life went on. She worked nights, my dad worked days, so, and then weekends they slept. And we got my brother and sister, we got, pretty much ourselves. My sister was quite a bit older. She came from a previous marriage from my mother. And so that was the wartime, and then things were tough to get. And for some reason, my mother was pretty sharp. She knew where to get some of that stuff on the black market. Yeah, I can say that now without you guys turning me over to the FBI. But they had that, Sugar was very difficult to get. Bananas. You had to stand in line to get bananas. And shoes, I think they had a ration book. I think you were only allowed 2 pair a year, because all the leather stuff had to go to the war effort. And what else was sugar? Oh, there was many. Meat was difficult to get a hold of because they had to feed the armies, Navy, and all that. And I don't know, we survived. And get this, movies were 10 cents. You go to the movie house, you get it for 10 cents, and then because of the war, they raised it to 11. 1 cent went toward the war effort. So, what's 1 cent today? Not much, is it?
So you talked about your mother being from Austria. Did she have family back in Austria?
Pardon?
Did your mother have family back in Austria?
No.
No? Oh.
She studied, my sister helped her study for her citizenship you know, the Pledge of Allegiance and all that, and she made it. Flying colors. My dad didn't have to take it. I don't understand why, because he was straight from Hungary. So, which reminds me of when I was growing up, and there was this banter between the whites and African Americans, and the African Americans kept calling us honkies. Is that correct? But anyways, I had a laugh because truly I was a honky, because that was the slang word for a Hungarian, see? So I could sit there and smile when I was called a honky. So I'll never forget that.
So you talked about growing up and being in Boy Scouts. You talked about growing up and being in Boy Scouts. Can you explain some about that to us?
Pardon?
Can you explain about being in Boy Scouts? Like, what were some of the things that you did?
In the Boy Scouts?
Yes.
Oh, there were many things. First was you had to take a course, was required to take a course, you know, to get rank. You had to take a course in first aid. Then there was one with the signal flags. I bombed out on that, you know that. And I can't remember all the stuff, but I'll remember one thing. That experience in the Boy Scouts, the camping and all that, really helped me out when I went over to Korea. I was the only one that could make little fires and heat up our sea rations, and they'd all be standing around like, how did you do that, you know, and it was all. And then of course during basic training, guys got injured. I remember one guy got caught. He was trying to pull his bayonet off his rifle, and he had it between the knees, and it went, caught him up here. So I had to patch him up. And we had a guy that had, they call him fits, but epileptic, or whatever it is. That guy could lift a double cot with one hand when he went into him. And I was the only nut. I call it that because I wasn't afraid of what he was going to do. I had to go in and dig out of his.
George Hurlick to the security desk at this time.
You can continue if you'd like.
Who was, did they want me? I refused to move. So where was, so I had to take care of him. And then the guy with the bayonet up here. So I would say that at the Boy Scout training that I had helped me a lot for survival. I can truly say that, because once I got over to Korea, I got to tell you, and landed, and they served breakfast, and it was burnt. It was SOS. I won't tell you what that is, because it got a nice, beautiful young lady sitting over there. It was SOS. I think some of you know what that is. It's on a shingle. And it was burnt. And then we went up on a narrow gauge railway. And at night, as we're moving up towards Seoul, at night you could hear the ping of rifles hitting the train. So we had to keep the lights off, but you could still, they were still shooting at the train, but it never penetrated because they didn't have very good weapons, which was fortunate for us. But well, can you imagine, made in China? I had to slip that in there because they're arguing right now about the trade with China. And, well, I can't remember. I got to really shake the, MASH. Don't believe any of it. I don't even watch it. I watched it once, and that was the end, because I went through a MASH unit, and I'll tell you this offhand, none of those doctors suffered from a hangover. I didn't see any still. In fact, the most tragic thing that happened is they brought in a guy on a stretcher, put it at the foot of my cot, and I had to watch him die, because he had a disease he caught. They had a flea that was on rodents, and if you got bit by that flea, you would get I think they call it hemorrhagic fever. There was no cure for it. Your eyes would bleed, nose, ears, mouth, you know, you were gone. So they didn't have a cure for that, and you're going to have to shake my mind, because a lot of that is buried. But the stuff you watch on MASH, forget it. There were no such thing as hot lips. In fact, there were no women, because back in those days, you never knew when you were going to be overrun. The Chinese did not fight a conventional war. In other words, when we fight a war, you got a squad and then a company, all that stuff, and then these things got to happen, and these things you got to do. All they did was mass, get high. I don't know what they used, but they got high. I'm not kidding you. And then they charge you. And there were a lot of times they were outnumbered like 20-1. And that's why instead of M1s, we were issued carbines. Because you could put, I had 60 rounds, I had 30 rounds on each thing, so when they came, all I had to do was pull a trigger. But we had to change our, what do they call that, instead of fighting normally? There was no fighting normally, You just, they would pour it in. They get them high, and then away you go. But I had one advantage. I hated fish. I got very sick on fish. And at night, I'd be in a perimeter guard. We always had two, because the enemy was using 2 sticks and wire, and they come up behind you. So there was 2. And we'd be out there, and now remember, no street lights, no lights at all. And if you were lucky, the moon was out, but then most of the time it was cloudy and all that. So you just sat there. And one thing you learn fast is you don't stare. Because if you stare, say at a pole or a tree, it'll dance on you. Within a few seconds, it'll start moving. And there are a lot of times when we had guys go out on guard, if they used their weapon while they were on guard. Now, this is at night, and they fired their weapon, and the first thing in the morning when the sun broke, we sent them out, we sent a patrol out to see what they shot. And so far, this one guy shot a cow, 2 posts, He didn't get anybody, but, at nighttime, anything moves here. Don't take your chance and ask who goes there. Steak, or... So that was one of the things you had to learn, not staring. And I remember a lot of guys we had these parkas, I don't know if you ever heard of them, and they used to stick them on a stick and air them out, and then go in their tents or something like that. And some guard would run across it, and there wouldn't be anywhere around where the tent is. He woke up to pick up his parka with bullet holes in it. So it didn't answer, The first thing is, you met anybody at night, you would stop and say, halt, who goes there? what's the password? Oh, they had so many ridiculous, apple pie, and all that stuff. But if they didn't answer correctly, you shot them. No questions asked, you shot them. So you didn't know who was in front of you. And especially if you're up at the front, what are these guys doing walking around like you are, I stopped one guy one time, the only thing he was wearing was pants. And I questioned him. I had my friend with me, and he was answering, but we didn't know what he was talking about. We couldn't understand if he was Korean, Japanese, or what. And by all rights, we could shoot him, but I didn't wanna, and my partner didn't wanna, so we let him go. And then we were scolded because they said he's going to go back now and tell them what he saw. He didn't see anything, just us two nuts, and we got yelled at for, disobeying. But we weren't punished because we would have enjoyed that, because they had to send us back to Japan. That reminds me, we did everything. Like when we got R&R, they would send us to Japan, and the last day of R&R, we would get smockered. I mean, we really, poured it down, and we thought, well, they'll throw us in the stockade for 30 days. You know what they did? They threw us in the stockade, all right, in a shower, cold shower. We are sitting there, it just did not work out like we thought it would, Can't think of anything else. There were a lot of stuff we did that we shouldn't have done. I remember we had 2 snipers. Then we send a guy across the crest, wearing his fatigue bottoms and a white T-shirt. And then their snipers would snipe at him, and then our snipers, which were sharper than their snipers, would take them out. We got yelled at. It was something to do, And what can I say? We could be naughty once in a while, Can't think of anything else. You learn the language. The language I learned was the Japanese, Like, this is Kumbawa. Morning was Ohayo gozaimasu. Then it's Konnichiwa and Kumbawa. Kumbawa, it's evening, I'm sorry. It was Konnichiwa. See, you learn that. And then Japanese, it would be Ichi ni sanshi go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you pick up a little Japanese. Then you got arigato, which means come here. Musume. I shouldn't even have to explain that to you. Musume. Hey, musume. Yeah. Look at him smile. I got him smiling. Mark that down on your calendar. Oh, we had all kinds of, neat tricks. See, now by that time I was 19. I enlisted 18. And you guys are probably wondering, why did I enlist? I think, well, first of all, I got out of high school early. I got out at 17. And I got a job in a factory. And I'm working, and you're doing the same thing day in, day out, a factory. And I said, there's got to be a better life than this. And I didn't know what, So they were drafting like crazy because the war was going in full swing, and I guess the Chinese entered it. So I figured, I'll get over it, enlist and then do my thing, and then when I come out, I'll be 21. I should be able to continue, which was true, I did. And It worked out. But I thought by enlisting, though, this is where I made the mistakes, that I would get perks. Went through basic and I was on board ship before I could even say hallelujah, you know. Did my basic training and, you know. And then the band is playing, now is the hour. How did that go? Now is the hour when we must say goodbye. And the other one was red sails in the sunset. They did all that stuff. Oh. And it took us about, what is that, about 13 days aboard ship. Well, ours, we had a little problem. We met up with a typhoon for 3 days. And the cleanest place on that ship, you're not going to believe it, was the latrine. I slept in there because nobody made it that far when they were going to feed the fish. That ship, even as full as it was, really was like a cork. And it had over 5,000 troops aboard it. I think it was just like a cork for 3 days. And then the prop would come out, you know, the thing. And I would swear to God that every rivet on that ship was going to pop. Because that prop, when it came out, you got to remember how heavy that ship is. And that thing is going around out of the water. That ship shook. Wow. You guys are making me think back to the old days. Now they fly you guys over there, you know, that are in the service. You get to take airplanes. And as far as MASH is concerned, it's ridiculous what's on TV. They didn't have any stills, hangover doctors. You got in there, they took care of you and out as fast as they could. That was their method of getting the wounded and healed quickly and keep them over there, you know. If I recall correctly, there were no women nurses in these MASH units because they were situated pretty close to the front. And if they got overrun, they didn't certainly want our women to be captured. So that's all I can say about that. Any questions now? Keep them simple.
So where did you do basic training?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Oh, that was another experience. Down south, I found out a lot of stuff. They still had the KKK, really, and hated Catholics. Let's see, what else? It was like a Bible belt. There were a lot of things down there. And it's at segregation, whites only. And then when I saw all that happening, I thought, this isn't right. I thought that only happened in the movies. I'm serious. I was really, I couldn't believe it, you know, that it was that bad down there. It really was. I was only down there not too long. Basic training, at least 16 weeks. August, September, October, December. Yeah. I was there till Christmas time, and then I got back, and then my unit that I trained with in basic training, this really hurt me somewhat. You see, you bond with these guys when you train with them, you know, in basic, in the infantry. You bond with them. Well, I got pneumonia, and I was in the hospital, and when I got back, I found out that the unit that I trained with went to Trieste, Italy. Ooh, I think it Italian, you know. Ooh, ciao, and all that. Yeah, you know. I got sent to Korea. Oh, I thought they would fly me over the tree. I said, never. So I had to start a new bond.
Yeah.
I had to be with new guys. Am I boring you?
No.
No, if I am, just raise your hand. And let's see, that was in 1953 when they ended segregation in the Army. And that was nice. And I'll show you how that segregation worked. I was with the 326th Army Band at Fort Lost in the Woods. For you people that it's Fort Leonard Wood. And at Fort Leonard Wood, they also had the 315th Army Band, which consisted of all Afro-Americans. So you got the 326th and the 315th, and there were barracks side by side. And this is no BS. Every weekend, starting on a Saturday afternoon, they would, what did they call it? They would play music till Monday morning. Rap, well, they call it rap now, but back then it was, you just grab your, musicians talk, you grab your axe, and then you go in there and you join them, see? And that went on, and that was neat. And they had music practically the whole week, and if you were dead broke, which normally ended at the first week you got paid. You only got paid, what was that, $75 a month? I forget, but it wasn't much. And I sent $50 automatically. They took out of my pay and put it in a bank back home. So when I got home, I had enough money to buy a '50 Mercury convertible, canary yellow, $900. Oh, was that a fashion wagon? Oh, sorry, Shutzy. Got to be careful. I got my daughter there. She's hiding there. And that was neat, though. But I found out the hard way, though. Convertibles suck here in Wisconsin and Milwaukee. Oh, but I was down at Fort Law, and it was sunny all the time, so I left the top down, I had that canary yellow. $900. Buy that a boat. And then it had that overdrive, I think they call it. You get it up there, and then you pull the silver lever out, and you got about 25 miles on a gallon of gas. And I had a V8 engine in that convertible. That was neat. But then I also found out that after I got out, convertibles suck in Milwaukee area. Bad. No, you gotta have a in the winter time, in the first winter I was home with that convertible, I froze with the heater on full blast. And my roof was that far off the rib, that the heat blowing in, and it would raise your roof up, Got rid of it. Bought a '55 brand new Ford. So, and I ended up in a service as a staff sergeant, first sergeant of a training unit at Leonard Wood, or Lost in the Woods. So, that was 21. So when I applied for a job, I got one right away. When I told them I was 21 and I didn't have to serve anymore, I could, my first year was the post office. And you got to be special for that, because you're doing the same thing day in, You first of all, you got to learn the zones. I don't know how many there are now, but back then there was 18. You had to learn that. So when you got letters, I was a zoner. I worked my way up. You get the letters that didn't have the zone numbers on them. Like now it's what, 532 or whatever it is, and then zone number. You just, and then you'd always have somebody walking behind you, watching you. And I remember one time I went down and I had my kerchief out, and I had a bloody nose. I don't know where I got it from. And the guy, he starts yelling at me, and I turn around and he says, "What you want me to do, bleed on these letters?" He shut up. But that's the way we were. Do you ever hear that expression, going postal? That's where it came from. These guys would stand behind you, and they were, and I was 1 year, and that was it. Then I got a temporary job, working for a service station on Capitol Drive, right across the street from Luell Buick, and that was fun. I enjoyed that because you could go in there, fill up their car, wipe their window, and if it's a nice person in the car, you could strike up a conversation and all that, You're not taking notes, are you? That was close. So, can't think of anything else yet. You're going to have to shake my brains. But one thing I didn't like was the post office. That was too raw. And then the factory. I told you I worked in the factory first. You got to be special for that. And then a post office. I liked the service station. In fact, I wanted to buy one. There was one open on 64th and Villard, I remember. And I'm glad that it didn't work out because that was a bad corner, and it wasn't busy. I don't know why Standard Oil decided to put a service station there, but as far as I know, it might be closed now. So, I can't think of anything else. Oh, and then I got a job at the electric company under the GI Bill. I wanted to become a draftsman. I'm a certified architectural draftsman today. But not residential. So don't get any ideas asking me to help you build your house. Factory, yes. Any questions? I'll take a few now. I can't tell you my age because I forgot. Ain't no whispering. Just because I can't hear you.
So you talked about being in the 326 Army Band. I believe that was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Can you tell us some of the things that you did in basic training?
Basic training at that time was 8 weeks. And during that 8 weeks, you learned how to handle your weapon, which was the M1. And they got you so that you could take that weapon apart and put it together. When I mean take it apart, I don't mean just the whole thing apart and put it together in the dark. So in the event, that was the theory, is your weapon doesn't work or something, and then you could, time out, yeah, it ain't working. And so you could fix it, see? And a lot of times it would be maybe a little dirt in the port. They call it was a port where when a shell and the bullet leaves, the gases follow it to the port, and the port, it goes in the port, and it comes back and it knocks that lever the bolt back and forth. That's on that. You get that plugged, your weapon isn't going to work, so you have to keep that clean. And the worst thing that I didn't like is when we had to launch grenades from the rifle. Boy, has it got a wallop, because it's taking everything that operates the rifle and using that energy to propel a hand grenade, and that's like you're shooting, and it's like you're getting hit in the shoulder by a mule. You know. So good thing I never had to do that, but I remember without thinking, I come around the corner and this guy had a hand grenade and he froze, a live hand grenade, and he froze. And I walk into that, and they're yelling, "Get out of there, get out of there," because they thought that, something, dummy here, I wouldn't call it dummy. I walked up to him and talked to him and everything. I finally got the grenade out of his hand and flung it and pushed him down, and then it exploded and all that crap coming down on it. And they said, "Nice job." Well, what was I supposed to do? I mean, I did that without thinking. I could have went in there and said, "Oh, shit with that," and go away. But that guy was in trouble. He was scared of a hand grenade. Oh boy, I can't think of stuff that happened in Korea, because I think I've buried most of it. But rice paddies. If I tell you what they use for manure, you would never eat rice again. Oh, I don't know how they could have done that. I really don't. But they use human waste in their rice paddies. That's why we weren't allowed to eat in any restaurant in Korea. Not any of them, because you didn't know the food they made, how that food was processed. So, and if you eat food that, oh God, you could get sick. They had diseases, even to this day they didn't have names for them. But that was something too. And then I remember they hauled our butts out one time. They caught a young lady up in the hills, and she claimed she was raped by one of us, And so they, MPs, and she was in the middle, would go down this line. I mean, troops, soldiers. And you go down the line there, and she was supposed to point out which one, And I remember the guy, up goes his collar, his hat comes. No! Are you suspecting anybody? And you go by in a big smile. And the medic was there, and he told the guy that after the inspection here, he's supposed to report to the medics back there, because the way he said it, it was something like, they got diseases we don't have names for, or whatever. And when I looked at her, I said, these guys had to be desperate. I mean, there wasn't anything. I mean, they didn't look like Betty Grable. They weren't pinups. That's the word I was trying to look for. They were filthy, and some of those guys slept with them, and I don't know what they did. But you got court-martialed back stateside if you were caught, but I don't know what they did over there. I suppose over there they were hoping they would get court-martialed and then they would come back here. That was the only way, you know. And I was trying to think of the fighting going on. There wasn't too much. The Marines were in charge of the perimeter around Seoul. I just remember that. They took care of Seoul, and then they had the other divisions. I was up in what they call the Iron Triangle. It was 3 little burgs or cities or something which we contained, and that was like a fortress that they couldn't penetrate at that time. But and then what happened, the big blow came is when the Chinese attacked. They weren't prepared for it, and I don't know why. You gotta probably blame our intelligence for that if they couldn't see that coming. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But that wasn't good. And they caught us, and then they weren't ready for winter, and a lot of guys froze. I remember one guy asking, going around, he was the medic come by, he says, "Hey, you want some toes?" And he broke his toes off and threw them at him. His feet were damaged with frost, you know, and he could break his toes off. And that winter was really rough. 20 below. You still had to fight a war. There was no time out. I don't understand that. I thought maybe they get down to 68 degrees, there would be a time out because it was too cold. No, they continued that. And you really had to watch your weapon, though. At 20 below, that you had to be careful. You know, he kept it oiled up and that. And then it's the same when in the rainy season, I could clean my weapon, and 20 minutes later I could see brown spots start appearing on it, even though I kept the oil on. And the rainy season, that's another one. I remember if you had a pair of socks, you could sell one of them for $5, you know, if it was dry. Uh-oh. You're getting ready for the interrogation. I just want to let you know. Okay, shoot.
Do you have any stories about the guys you served alongside with?
Any stories about them? Not really. I mean, you
Or
just...
like experiences you guys had over in Korea.
You know, we were all together, you know, and we watched each other's back. When you went on guard duty at night, it was always 2. Most of the time, the guy you went out with, you didn't know. It was just, you know, you had to make sure you got the right password. I remember we had a captain there that went around checking the troops. He couldn't remember the password if his life depended on it. He would sit there, go through a whole list of, oh, get out of here, you know. But you knew who he was, so it was okay. But, you know, and I told you about the guy I found with only pants on. I sent him out, you know, I didn't, by rights I could have blew him away, but I can't see that. I couldn't see it at the time. If he had a weapon and he was intended on using it, that's something else. But to catch a guy with only wearing pants, I couldn't see it. And neither did my buddies, so I don't have blood on my hands for that, you know. But there are some guys that would have shot anything. You know, that's just the way they were. Maybe they saw their buddies get killed. I remember the Marines. they found some of their buddies with their bootlaces tied them up and shot them back of the head, made them kneel and shot them back of the head. Well, that area there, I can assure you, no prisoners were taken. Because just imagine how you would feel to run across a couple of your friends and they're hog-tied and bullet hole in the back of their head. A vengeance, isn't that what they call it? Yep. And then I had a guy, I was sitting in my hole, the foxhole, a guy running by like he had the whole Chinese army on him or something. He just run across. And I, what's up, And I thought, are we going to get hit or something? And then the MPs are running by, and they're yelling at us for not shooting him. He was deserting. And I said, well, where the hell is he going to go? He can't swim the Pacific Ocean. The MP looked at me like, you wisecracker. But that's true. If he's deserting, where is he going to go? I couldn't figure that out. I don't know if they ever caught him, but I remember we got a lecture. Why didn't we shoot him? I forgot my ammunition. I left it at home. Yeah. So, after my tour in Korea, I was sent to, came home. I got a 30-day furlough, which I would recommend never take a 30-day furlough, because when you go back to duty, it's like starting all over again. See, it was 30 days, plus you had 5-day travel time and all that, and when I got back, it was terrible. I would never take 30 days again, because it's, like I said, it's starting all over again, and it's just, I'm not used to that. So, any more questions? Did I like the food? No. Did I like the woman? I have to plead the fifth on that one.
Coming back from Korea, how did you feel transitioning back to civilian life?
Well, first of all, when I got back, the people didn't greet us too well. I think part of the problem was they thought we would kick ass. And there was no kicking ass. I mean, they held us in check there. I'm not kidding you. And you got to fight the Chinese. And when they went into battle, they were high. So, and like I say, we came back and people then, just like the guys from Nam, that came back and the people practically booed them. And not only that, they called them baby killers. That was terrible. Sure, there's going to be children killed. That's what they call collateral damage. But they didn't do it deliberately. But I think what the United States government did wrong was trying to use Agent Orange to fight that war. And not only are the civilians even today suffering over there, the soldiers are. I had Bobby, our first cousin. He died of Agent Orange. My best friend that I worked with at the electric company, that guy was 6'4", and he was built like, a proverbial brick house. He died of Agent Orange. It's terrible, terrible, really terrible. Now I'm getting to be philosophizing here. Huh? Never took the course though. But it was terrible, you know, some of the stuff that our government does.
So you talk about taking 30 days, the 30 plus 5. Can you go into depth maybe about what you did over those 30 days?
You'll turn red. No. 30 days? I'll be sure I drank a lot. I really did. I could outdrink anybody. My friends that weren't in the service would I would have to throw them in my car. They couldn't keep up with me. And that's one thing you learn in the service too, is booze. Because I never drank water over in Korea, because that water in the Lister bags tasted worse than medicine. So, and we used to get, I think it was 2 cases of beer a month, if it was wrong, and that was a picnic, because it was in steel cans, and you try to open them, you get a shower first, because you know they had to transport it, and those roads aren't like our roads here. They're, you know, bombs, holes in there. And that would be on the truck, and it gets shaken up. You had a ritual to open up a beer can. Yeah, I can't even remember something about you tapping it on, and then you know, you get that. Still, you would get a shower. Your face would get a shower because it was Schlitz beer. That's the only beer, and then they had a Japanese beer. I forget what that was. That was pretty good. But their Schlitz was, you know, that was steel cans. They didn't have aluminum, you know. And that was something. I can't think, and I think I told you we weren't allowed to eat any of their food. And that what you're watching on MASH.
So, being a veteran of the Korean War, during the Vietnam War, what was your stance on America's involvement?
I don't know about the involvement. My stance was with the men. They were doing their job as they were prescribed to do. The Marines and the Army, they were doing their job, and then the people were, you know, treated them like, oh, it was terrible. Terrible. They were doing their job. I couldn't believe how the people treated them that way. Although we didn't get welcome that much neither, but still, when they started calling them names and everything else, that was bad. That was bad. And that war shouldn't have been. I look at it, the French had it, right? And the French bugged out, which figures. They did. They bugged out. That's an expression for leaving in a hurry. Hear that pitter patter of little feet, the 40th Infantry in full retreat. They're bugging out.
Assad Akbar, report to the Hickey Center.
Okay, thank you. I don't know what he said. Okay, any more questions? I can answer them all, almost. Now you're going to ask me how did I adjust after I got on?
Yeah. So,
quite easily.
do you have any examples from coming back from Korea, examples of people mistreating you or people you served alongside with? Like, what kind of things would they say to you guys? Or
You mean that were we mistreated
yeah.
in any way? not in a physical sense,
Yeah.
I don't think. That would have been too obvious, you know. But I remember one of the perks with this thing is that when I enlisted, there was a window there that anybody that enlisted in that 6 months period would only serve 3 years, no reserve, active or inactive, you were clean. Well, I didn't know that until I went and applied for something, and the guy, he told me, "You're clean." Oh, yeah? I didn't know that, you know. He didn't tell me that, but it was good to know. So, there are nice camps out there, forts out there, but there's also bad ones also. Fort Lost in the Woods. I don't know about the Marines. I can't speak for the Marines. I had two of my buddies enlisted in the Marine Corps, and I didn't hear them speak badly of their camps or anything. We were more interested in down in the brew, you know. That's the only time we got together. I mean, we were friendly. Then after we left, then they were our competitor. I'd rather be a dog-faced soldier than a fancy pants Marine. You didn't hear it from me. Oh.
So.
Another thing is when I came out, I didn't talk about my experience. I don't know why, I just kept it to myself. And I think at that time is that I felt bad that we didn't complete the job we were supposed to have done, you know. We went there, that old theory, kick ass and come home waving our flag. That didn't happen. No, that didn't happen. And I suppose right now that's not happening. And it's bad. It's bad. It's bad for morale. That's the hardest thing I found when I was finally got in a position where I was in charge of men. In fact, second in command, the commanding officer, and then I would be first sergeant. I found out that the most difficult task was to try to keep the morale up. It was very difficult. And then you get one in there, or a couple of them in there, that have marital problems, or dear Johns, you know. Yeah, what do you do? I'm not a chaplain. I can't help them out. But, you know, you do the best you can. You make sure that they don't take their weapon and they're using. A lot of them used to get out of the service, used to use their weapon to shoot their toes off. And I don't know what happened to them. And then the other one now, you might laugh at it, and I hope you're not in that situation. All the gays were eliminated. If there was a suspicion of a person being gay, he would automatically kind of disappear. He would get discharged or whatever. And that's the way it was back in my time. Now it's, what is it? Ask no questions, or I forget what it is. But you're not allowed, I guess, to do that. But back then, if you were under suspicion, you're gone. And some of those guys could have been, you know, top-notch guys, but they had that. And then I think this gentleman, they had the integration in 1953, so that was a major breakthrough. So I can remember my platoon sergeant basic training was Afro-American. And I would follow that guy to hell if he asked me. He was a damn good leader, you know. Of course, he had experience. Maybe that helped. You know, he had been engaged and came back, you know. So you took guys that came back, they were kind of, you know, looked, how could you say that, or looked at like stars or something, because they've been there and did that. So I hope you're spelling my name right.
So, what was it like going from a job being in the service, or I mean enlisting, to going to being a certified draftsman and a senior engineer draftsman?
I was, when I went in the service, I was working in a factory making light fixtures. So when I went in the service, it was an experience. But I had attained some of those skills that are required, life-saving and all that, when I was a Boy Scout. So that helped me out. So, and it helped a lot of guys out because I was able to assist in caring for them. Especially we had a couple. I even questioned our first sergeant about this guy. I says, this guy's having epileptic fits all the time. What's he doing in the service? What are you going to do when he gets into combat and you have a fit? I said, I wouldn't have to. I couldn't possibly take time out to take care of him. And the guy says, well, we'll let the Army work on that. Yeah, sure. But as long as he's warm and he's breathing, infantry.
What was your experience in Korea with senior leadership, positive or negative?
Senior leadership?
Yeah. Like the high brass.
There really wasn't any per se. You still had your squad leader. You had to maintain that discipline, whether you were in Korea or at Fort Jackson. The rank dictated how you treated these guys. If you were a private, you had to get due respect all the way up to the 4-star general. But well, I went up the ladder pretty quickly, so it was a different story there. I got back from Korea, I remember that, and got great news that I was going to Fort Lost in the Woods. And so when I got there, but all those guys that I had a trainer or something never been outside that Fort Leonard Wood. And by the way, Fort Leonard Wood is an engineering camp. They train engineers there. So that's, that's the way it went. Yeah. When I got to Fort Leonard Wood, though, I got involved with the marching band. And next thing I know, I was a company clerk, barrack sergeant, and then first sergeant, just like that. Boom, boom, boom. And my company commander was an alcoholic, so I actually had to run the outfit. And I had another guy from Milwaukee here, Ron DeVillers, helped me out. I made him a squad leader, and so we took care of it. what are you going to do? I want to keep my job was to keep the morale up in that thing. I could have said to hell with it. In fact, I did, in a way you could say I did, because I volunteered to go to Europe, which would have cost me 3 ups. You know, I would have had a up, 3 times to get to Europe. And then I put that aside because I didn't want to go. And then what was the other one? Oh, I volunteered to go to New Mexico. They were experimenting with the bomb, and I wanted to be in that group. They said, no, you're cadre. You're staying here. We can't lose you. Oh, yeah. I would have liked that, though, but I mean, other than the fact I would be glowing now, but I mean. So, what else?
You said you were originally put as a artillery repairman.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. But so, why were you put into the band unit?
Because I got orders to report to the 8th Division Band, and they wanted to interview me at Fort Jackson. What have I got to lose, So I went down there, and I saw the guy that I was supposed to interview, and he said, what instrument did you play? And I said, in high school I played the flute. You're in. What? You're in! I said, what? You're in! I didn't have to prove it or nothing, and it's in, because there weren't too many men that played the flute. And that's the first time I thanked the music director at the high school, because he said, I wanted to join the band, I wanted to play clarinet. He says, no flute. And I says, clarinet, no flute. Clarinet, no flute. And so I did to get the half credit. And then what I actually did, though, was what intrigued me was the formations. And I got into developing different band formations, and that was fun. And so that's how I made it. I'll never forget, though, I walked in, I was supposed to audition, and I told him what I played, and he said, you're in. I didn't have an instrument there or nothing. I didn't even have to hum.
So you originally did not intend to play flute?
No.
But
it was sort of a blessing in disguise.
Would you say that you're glad the band unit was where you ended up in the Army instead of artillery repairman?
I had no intention of going in for artillery repairman. Now, when I was told that, when I went for audition, and then I told the guy what I played, and he says, you're in, I didn't believe it. I really didn't. Then I went to, at that time, I don't know if they still have it, they have a band training unit, it's called BTU, and I was in the BTU. Not only do you play and are taught how to play in the marching band, but you had to take a course in recognizing bugle calls. I don't know if they use that. The most common one you hear all the time is the one with a cavalry, You're like, charge! They only do that on payday. When you're heading for the NCO club. That was another new thing for me, the NCO club, because I could go to the NCO club and drink the hard stuff. back home here, if I was home on leave, you get carded if you go in a tavern. Although I know which ones to go to, so I didn't have to worry about that. But, you know, that I could never figure that out. That you're in the service, you come home, and your state says you got to be 21 to drink hard liquor, or even drink beer for that. I don't know. But hey, you can wield a deadly weapon. Oh, don't put that down there. Okay, what questions do you have? I like to answer questions if I can. Uh-oh, this must be a good one.
So, how were you introduced to Mrs. Lovinus? How were you introduced to your wife, Mrs. Lovinus?
Blind date. My squad leader came up here on his honeymoon. Believe me, to this day, I'm still trying to figure that out. Come to Milwaukee, but anyways, his wife was a nurse, and my wife is a nurse, RN, and she took training down in St. Louis. And unbeknownst to me, that she knew my squad leader's wife, because that's where she met this guy. That's how, and then they made a phone call. We went out, and that was my first date with my wife at that time. And I thought, wow, that's the one. You know, you feel it. You feel it. You get that girl there. You know. And I had dates with several other ones, but this wasn't. It was some kind of a magic or something, or was it? And she hit me over the head with the beer bottle. One of those two things, you know. Okay, interrogator. Uh-oh. Now here comes the hard ones.
Well, thank you for.
Oh, I thought he was going to ask me about birth control. Whoa!
You could get him to ask which one is your favorite child.
Hey, don't prompt these guys.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Mr. Lovinus. It was
Oh,
very nice
you're
talking
welcome.
to you. Thank you for coming.
But you really got to get into some of these guys that were in hairy action, you know. And I can't comment on how that feels, you know. And then also, I'm going through a treatment now. It's a PTSD treatment or something, and there was one guy that saw his three of his buddies killed, and he's having a problem with that because he sees them every night. They stand in front of his bed. Now that might sound silly to you, but it's true. He sees them because they were knocked off, and he's going through this treatment, how that is, you know, and that's hard to explain. There's a lot of stuff that happens that your mind just doesn't erase right away, you know. I saw the dead, I saw the wounded. I think the one that shook me up a little bit is they were bringing the wounded in, and I was at some airstrip, Kimple, and they were bringing in, and I was lighting up cigarettes for the guys, you know. That, regardless of what the movie does, that's what they did. It was smoke, you know, you gotta smoke. And I'm lighting a cigarette for the guy and I'm gonna hand it to him, and this was it right arm or his left arm was blown off. And I stopped, you know, and that was the worst thing I went through there to see that. I seen him shot and I seen him killed, but when no arm, you know. So, and I told you that before, MASH. I don't watch it. Oh, I just can't. Because it's so, to me, you know, people might laugh at that or something. To me, it's so damn phony, you know. And I just can't. I don't know if I'm weird or what, but I just can't, you know. And there are some war flicks out there too that I can't watch, you know, like Rambo No Blood. You get up there, a hail of 50 caliber bullets and everything, you know. Why is it always the good guy never gets hit? Did you ever notice that? Oh.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you for
you're
coming.
welcome, but I mean, you didn't have to thank me. I would gladly do this.